And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game that would have made my top 10 games of the last year had I had it when I made that list, but that game is Space Cadets. This is a Stronghold Games release, just came out a little bit ago, designed by the Engelsteins, members of the Dice Tower, some of them. And a game that is going to be a cooperative game for anywhere from 3 to 6 players set in space. Now the idea is that everybody will have their own role on a spaceship. You may be the shields, or maybe you're the engineer or the captain. And that with those roles, you'll be doing a specific task, and all of those tasks are basically little mini-games. And the idea is to either pick up crystals or defeat the enemies, or whatever the case may be. But real quick, why don't we take a look at what you get inside this box. We'll go over how the game plays, or at least how some of the little mini-stations play, and then we'll come back here and we'll get my final thoughts on Space Cadets. So here you can see some of the components for Space Cadets. Now these are just the center of the area, like play area components. These have nothing to do with the players playing themselves, but this is where all the action is going to take place. This is where your ship's going to move around. There will be enemies and such flying around in these little quadrants, and you're going to reveal these. And each scenario will have a pattern of how they're revealed. The first scenario is a 2x3 pattern of these squares. And on it you can see several features. There's asteroids, which can damage you if you fly through them and cause your opponents to lose their locks on you. There's nebulas, which can cause you to lose locks and have your opponents lose locks. There's some things that affect your speed. And then on some of these, there's going to be these rifts that if you fly through them will do damage to you and prevent you from shooting through them. On these, you'll have enemies, and you'll see the enemy tokens here. In addition, there are cards to go with each enemy, and they have different features like movement, shields, hit points, the amount of range they have for shooting, and then how they do damage. Anyhow, this is not what I consider to be the most unique part of this game, so know that you'll be flying around space with all the other stuff you're doing and trying to accomplish your mission on these boards with these pieces. Now this is the captain's board. One player will be the captain, and they may have other jobs as well, depending on how many players you have, but this is basically going to keep track of each round. At the beginning of each round, you're going to have 3 minutes to discuss your plan, and you'll see why that's important shortly. But you'll be discussing with all of the players what you plan on doing, distributing energy, which is gathered by the engineer, and just trying to figure out what your overall goal is, be it moving, shooting, trying to pick something up. After that 3 minutes, which is timed by this timer, which is 30 seconds each piece, you'll move it along here. After that, everybody's going to get ready to do their station. You'll see what that means shortly. Then you're going to go on to the action phase, where whoever's running the helm, the sensors, the shields, the weapons, and the engineering are all going to do their job. And if there happens to be a core breach, you're going to do that as well. You have 30 seconds to accomplish your goal there, so everyone is timed in their mission. And after that, you'll resolve it, figuring out what you got for shields, where you're going to move, and what you might have gotten locked onto, or what you might have accomplished with the sensors. After you've accomplished that, which you have an unlimited amount of time to do, you're going to go on to the tractor beam. And I'll cover what that does shortly. Then you'll go to weapons, firing your weapons, and then finally the enemy will get its actions. I guess that's technically not final, because after that you're going to do the jump drive, which is the objective of the game. If you accomplish your mission, you're going to want to jump away, and that will mean you're successful. And if you don't jump away, you're going to move to repair, which allows you to get rid of any damage which could have lasting effects on your ship. So during the game, one player will be the engineer, and they're going to be responsible for getting energy to every one of the other stations. Now, they're going to have these tiles, and during preparation phase, which is before the action phase, they're going to draw 7 of these tiles. So there's 7 tiles. And when you flip the timer for the 30 seconds, you're going to start matching these up. You'll see they have symbols on them. And you're going to try and match them up as best as possible in order to get as much energy to everyone as you can. So you'll be matching up these shapes, trying to complete circles like this. And I'm going to try and go as fast as I can in order to get as much energy as possible, flipping these tiles over. So this one doesn't really match up anywhere. Oh boy. And you get into situations like that where you get confused and you can't figure out what you want to do. So let's say I made this shape right here in my 30 seconds and we're done. Now for each one of these completed circles you have, you're going to distribute an energy to that station. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 shields, and I would take 4 of these little pills sometime during the round and place them on here on shields, and I would have 2 tractor beams, and I'd place 2 on the tractor beams. You get the idea here. I'd put these little pills on there. And at the start of the next whole round, so during the discussion phase, I'm going to distribute this energy to all of the other people that have different stations. And they're going to get these energy, and it's going to allow them to do their jobs. In addition, if you play the advanced variant, you're going to have these 2 little pills here, which are called batteries, which you can use as extra energy throughout the game, but once, and then they can be recharged if you need to, or they might explode. But anyhow, for the next round, you'd shuffle and do the same thing, and that will be the job of the engineer. Next we have the helm, and the helm's going to be responsible for piloting our spaceship through space, the tiles that you saw previously. Based on how much energy they have during the preparation, so let's say they got 3 energy from our engineer, they're going to distribute this energy between thrust and maneuver. Thrust will allow them to speed up or slow down their ship. So let's say they want to slow down, they put 1 pill in here and they slow down to speed 2, making them easier to hit, but maybe giving them a little bit more control as to where they end up. And they put 2 of them in maneuver, which will let them draw more cards. At this point, they're going to draw a number of cards equal to their speed, which is 2, plus the number of pills in their maneuver. So they're going to draw 4 cards. Now, during the 30 seconds of action time, they are going to be trying to place cards to maneuver the ship around the board in order to get it where they want to go. So, they draw 4 cards because speed of 2 and 2 maneuvers, but they only have to place 2 because they are at speed of 2. So of these 4 cards, they're going to place 2 of them for movement. Time will start, and they'll look through these cards, trying to figure out what they want to do. So this is going to move them forward 1 and turn them to the right. This one will move them forward 1, turn them to the right, and move them left. This one will turn them forward and to the left. And this one is forward and to the right. So they're going to choose how they want to place these, maybe something like this. So forward, left, forward, right. And that would be what they're going to do. Now, in addition to the cards they draw, which are going to be shuffled from a deck, they also have these special maneuvers that they can choose to use automatically. They're always face up there. But if they choose to use one of them, it comes with a cost. You have to roll a die, and if you get the bad result here, you're going to take damage, which you cannot avoid. It's internal damage, and it will hurt your ship. So here we have the shield officer display, and this player is going to be in charge of, well, manning the shields. And let's say they have 3 energy. With 3 energy, it allows them to draw 10 of these little tiles that they have. And these tiles are going to have numbers and colors on them. You know, this one's orange and an 8. Well, this one is 6 and 8, or 6 and orange. We have a 5 blue, and they'll be either blue or orange with numbers on them. And so they would draw 10 of these tiles during the preparation phase. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And basically what they're going to be trying to do is once the action phase starts, the 30 seconds, they're going to flip all of these over. And they're trying to make poker hands on each side of the shields here. So, they've done this. They left the back completely unshielded. But during their 30 seconds, and they don't have much time, they're trying to make the best poker hands they can on each side. So we'll look at each side now and resolve it during the next step. And you'll see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Well, that is a 5 straight, which is worth 3 shield points. Over here we have 2, no, we have a pair of 4s is all I see over there. So a pair of 4s is 1 point. You also, on this side, happen to have, well, nothing. So they get no shield points over there, and the back has nothing. So they're going to get no shield points. Now, if I had reversed this right here, you can see I still have a 5 straight, but on the outside, all of the colors are the same. This would increase my shields. You get double for having 3 of the same type on the outside. So they would get 6 shields in the front, 1 on the side, and none on either of the 2 sides. I did a very poor job, but the more energy you get, the more tiles you're going to get, and the better you'll be able to shield your ship. Also during that phase, we'll have the weapons officer, and the weapons officer is going to do something based on how much energy they have. Let's say they have 2. During the preparation phase, they're going to draw 2 cards from this deck. And this deck is going to be shuffled each round. But once the action phase starts, they're going to flip these cards over. And you'll see they have shapes on them with little squares. And corresponding to these, you have little shapes that you're going to be trying to use to fill these in exactly. And you have 30 seconds to do so. So now, all right, I finished both of mine. Maybe it was in 30 seconds. Maybe not. Who knows? But this is going to be what they're trying to do. And for each one of these that they succeed with, they're going to get a shot, which is going to be based on this track here. Now, this doesn't happen during the time period. It happens later. But based on your range from the enemy, you'll see there's a range here. The closer you are to the enemy, the further up this disc moves. You're going to get to shoot. And you're going to do so by flicking this disc and trying to get it to land in different areas. Now, landing in different areas is good because the further you get, the better you're going to do in terms of hurting your enemy. In addition, if you're locked on or super locked, which I'll cover in the sensors portion, you'll do more damage. The sensors officer is also going to have an important job, and their job is going to be to lock on to various objects. Now, in order to pick up crystals, which would be an objective in some missions, you're going to need to lock onto them. So let's say we flew into the first area of the map, and we found a crystal and 2 enemies. Well, let's say we want to lock onto that crystal, and maybe we want to lock onto one of the 2 enemies. We're not concerned about this other enemy right now, because we don't have enough energy to lock onto 2 guys anyway. Now, for each of these energy, we're going to be allowed to draw 1 card from this deck. And we're going to place these cards onto the items we want to lock onto. Each card that you successfully complete, and I'll show you how to complete in a moment, is going to give you 1 point. It takes 1 point to lock onto something, 3 points to super lock onto something, or 2 points to upgrade a lock to a super lock. In addition, you can scan a blank sector, so an area you haven't been to yet, in order to try and find out what's there. So let's say I wanted to lock onto each of these individual guys. When the action phase starts, the 30 seconds, I'm going to flip both of these over. And you'll see, I can see here there's a T shape and the L shape. And I'm going to have a bag of shapes. You'll see they look like this. So what I'm going to be doing during this phase is trying to reach in here and find the pieces that match. And remember, I only have 30 seconds to do so, and I'm using one hand to hold the bag. So you're trying to find the right piece. Maybe I think that this is the T. It's not, but you know, you get the idea. And you're trying to match shapes. So I grabbed these 2. Well, I got one right. And I would lock onto this piece. And there are little tokens that say lock on them. And you put one on top of it. It looks like this. You'll see, and I'd be locked onto that, which would allow me to tractor beam to it, which will double my damage from shooting it if I do get tractor beamed onto it. So that is basically the job of the sensors officer. Tractor beam is one of the few things that has its own action phase. And this is because you need to lock on to things before you can tractor beam to them. So you're going to have the sensors officer locking onto things, be it crystals or ships, and then you're going to try and tractor beam those things in. You tractor beam onto crystals to pick them up. You tractor beam onto ships because you'll do more damage if you have them in your tractor beams. So you can only tractor beam things that are less than 4 range away. And if you're locked onto them, you can do it. If you're super locked, all of your points are doubled. But for each of these little energy you have during your 30 seconds, you're going to get to flip up 2 tiles. And this is basically a memory game. So I'd flip up 2 tiles and see that this is a 4 green star and a 3 red triangle. Okay, that's good. Those don't match. And then I would, flip over 2 more. I found a 1 yellow square and a 3 red triangle. Well, now I know where the 3 red triangles are. So for future reference, I would be able to flip those over and get points for tractor beaming them. And if I were to do so, I would get 3 points. Now you need points equal to your speed plus your distance from whatever you're tractor beaming in order to be successful. So you can see why it's important to have super locks, because that will double your points, and this would be 6 points. So if I was moving at 5 speed and I was only 1 away, great, I've now tractor beamed onto whatever I'm after, because I've got 6 points. And that would double my damage or allow me to pick up a crystal, which may be part of my objective. And these would get removed from the board, and you'd move on with less tiles in the future, or you can choose to reset it, shuffle everything up, and start all over. Alright, now we're getting into damage and repair. Now, if you take damage, which means you get hit by a shield or hit by a shot from a side that you're not well protected on, or all of your shields are used up, or maybe you fly through an asteroid field, or you push your ship too hard, you're going to take damage. And you're going to take damage to a specific side of your ship, depending on where you got hit or what randomly happened. And when that happens and you're out of shields, you're going to draw cards from the right side of the ship's pile of cards. You'll see these are the port ones. And they can be randomized. If you roll a die, it can tell you which side you take damage to. But when you flip one of these cards, you're going to get either some type of systems damage, like this one, which says your cloak fails. The cloaking device may not be used, which is actually from the advanced version, and it absorbs 1 energy assigned to the sensors. And there's all types of different cards, but there are also some that do nothing if you take damage. Or there are some that say on them, shift change. They look like this. You'll draw one of these. There's 1 in each pile. And this means that some people are going to have to stand up and move position. So you'll have an all-new job. You may have been the damage person before, but now you may be the weapons officer. And there's a certain number of cards on each side of the ship. You can also repair these during the repair phase. And that's going to be based on, well, not exactly based on how much energy you have. But when you repair, you can draw as many cards as you want during your 30-second time period. But when you draw them, you're going to get something like this. This one is a random repair. And you would roll a d6, and it's either going to be a success on a 3, 4, 5, or a 6, or a failure on a 1 or a 2. A failure is actually going to do more damage to a random side of your ship, so you can repair and have bad things happen. So if you succeeded, you'd put it here. If you failed, it would go over here. The energy allows you to skip cards. So maybe I like that one, and I use it, and maybe it comes up as a failure because I'm a poor roller. This one here is an automatic success. You'll see that this would go on the success side, but once you use it, it's going to be discarded from the deck. So these are gone forever once you use them once. The next type of card is going to be an automatic failure. this is where my energy would come in. I would use an energy to discard this card and choose another one. But remember, you're trying to do this all in 30 seconds. After you've done this, you're going to be able to use these cards, the successes, in order to repair some of those cards I showed you earlier that have negative lasting effects. The failures are going to cause damage before that, though, to a random side of your ship, and you'll draw another card that will have an effect. Now, if you go through all of these cards on one side and you take damage beyond that, you're going to have to move up this core breach marker. What this does is it introduces another element of difficulty to the game. And the way this is going to work is that you'll see the number here is 3. During the preparation phase, the captain is going to deal out these cards that say core breach. If you take that much damage, there's been damage to your core. He's going to deal these cards out, and one has to go to each player, and then you can add a second one to each player. And these cards are going to have shapes on them. They look like this. Now, during your 30-second action phase, when you're trying to, prepare your weapons or match up energy or whatever your job may be, you're going to have to look at these cards. And this deck is going to be passed around. It's called the core repair deck. And when the deck comes to you, you're going to be trying to match your card, your core breach card, with the core repair card from this deck. Well, it just so happens the same one is on top. So I would match this, and I would pass this deck to the next person who has a core breach card, who's going to have to do the same thing. So you'll see the more core damage you take, the more of these cards you're going to have to match, but you have to do it all in the 30-second time you're allotted. So when you get up to 9 cards, it gets very difficult to not only perform your job, but to match all of the core breach cards to prevent the ship from exploding. If you fail to match all of the cards in the 30 seconds, the ship explodes and the players lose the game. The last station we have is the jump station. Now, this player is going to be responsible for trying to get you out of the mission when you've accomplished your goal. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to have their own 30-second time period in which to roll these dice and try and get 5 of a kind. So you can see right here I have 1, 1, 2, 2, 5. And so they're going to roll until they get 5 of a kind if you're trying to finish the mission, but you can only finish the mission once you've accomplished your objective. If you can't finish the mission, by the end of your 30 seconds, you're going to try and have some type of combination that will let you pick up one of these cards. Now, during your thing here, you can use your pills to re-roll, or your energy to re-roll. So if I wanted to re-roll this one die, I could re-roll that by using my thing, or I could re-roll all 5 if I wanted to. In addition, you can use your energy to get 30 more seconds during this period. Or you can, well, basically only to re-roll or to get 30 seconds. But once you finish your 30 seconds, you're going to try and get one of these cards. And you'll see I have 2, 2, 1, 1. That adds up to 6, plus another 6 is 12. I have less than 15. So I could take this card. And what this card lets me do is that each time I roll my dice now, or each time I have an action phase like this, I can use this die to add 1 to one of my dice, or this card to add 1 to one of my dice. So next time I roll my dice, I could roll them, and I could use this card by flipping it over to make this 4 into a 5, and now I have a full house. And I could take the full house card here, which is A, A, B, B, B. And that card would let me subtract 1 from 2 dice that are the same, or add 1 that are 2 dice to the same. So now I'd have that card and this card. And you can see here it'll get easier and easier to manipulate the dice in order to get your 5 of a kind. However, if you ever can't take one of these cards, you're going to take an internal damage to your ship. You're going to take one of those cards and deal the damage to your ship, and basically have the negative effects from that. Anyhow, if you manage to jump out before or once you accomplish your mission, you'll win. If not, you'll take enough damage and you'll be destroyed and lose the game. And that is Space Cadets. Now, as you can tell, this is kind of a combination of many different games. You have a Tetrising aspect from Fitz, you have poker hands, you have memory, you have flicking, kind of like in Crokinole. You have a matching game where you're trying to flip tiles around in order to match shapes. There's all kinds of different games, so if you like those games and you like chaos, but kind of controlled chaos, then I think you'll really like Space Cadets. It doesn't really fall to that co-op where everybody's telling everybody what to do. I mean, you have a planning stage, but after that planning stage, there's nothing that the alpha gamer can do to actually control what everyone else is doing. There's no, decision to be made there. Everyone makes their own decision and implements it as they see fit. So either that will crash and burn, or you'll all work together and potentially succeed. There's a lot of different missions. I've played the same mission several times, and it doesn't really get old, especially when you're playing with new gamers all the time. But it's easy to introduce. There's a lot of rules, but when you get it all together, it's a relatively simple concept to learn, and it's a lot of fun. So if that sounds good to you, check out Space Cadets from Stronghold Games.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.